The phantom ache in his calves had faded, replaced by a quiet hum of awareness. After days of practice, the muscle memory was beginning to form. He found himself correcting his posture while waiting for the kettle to boil, softening his shoulders, aligning his spine. He was learning the vocabulary of a new physicality, but the words still felt foreign, borrowed. Now, sitting on the sofa next to Maya, a new kind of anxiety fluttered in his chest. The language of movement was one thing, the language of fabric was another entirely. Maya had her laptop balanced on her knees, the screen casting a warm glow on their faces. "Okay," she said, her voice a mix of academic focus and gentle excitement. Lesson 3, The Architecture of Allie. Alan offered a weak smile, tracing the seam on his jeans. "Sounds intimidating." "It's not, I promise. It's just about understanding your canvas." She scrolled through a lookbook from a high-end designer, pointing to a model. "You have a similar build, long lines, slender frame, what designers call an ethereal or rectangle body type." He'd always just thought of himself as lanky. The word ethereal felt like it belonged to someone else, someone from a fairy tale. "So we're not trying to force a shape that isn't there," Maya explained, her finger capping the screen. "We're creating illusions. We're drawing the eye where we want it to go. Think A-line skirts to create a waist-to-hip ratio, empire waists that flow from just under the bust, wide-leg trousers that add volume and movement." She spoke with the easy confidence of a professional, turning abstract concepts into practical magic. They spent the next hour falling down a rabbit hole of online stores, Pinterest boards, and fashion blogs. Maya would narrate her choices, explaining why a certain neckline would soften his jaw, or how a belted cardigan could create a more defined waist. Alan, the graphic designer, found himself captivated. This wasn't just picking out pretty things. It was a masterclass in composition, balance, and color theory, all applied to the human form, to his form. He watched as Maya saved a flowy floral midi skirt to a new board titled Allie, then a soft cashmere wrap sweater, a pair of elegant, low-heeled ankle boots. A personality began to emerge from the collection of pixels, someone gentle, artistic, with a love for soft textures and muted, earthy tones. It was a person he felt he knew intimately, a person he was finally getting to meet. "Theory is great," Maya said, closing the laptop and setting it aside, "but we need a practical lab session." A fresh wave of nervousness washed over Alan. He knew what was coming. Maya stood and walked to her closet, her expression thoughtful. She returned not with a flashy dress, but with something simple, a charcoal gray skirt made of a heavy jersey-like material that fell in soft pleats to just below the knee. "This was my mom's," she said, her voice soft. "It's a classic. The fabric has a beautiful weight to it, so it drapes instead of clings." She held it out to him. The material felt cool and substantial in his hands. It was an offering, a tangible piece of trust. Taking a deep breath, he went into the bedroom to change. He slipped off his jeans and pulled on the skirt, his hands fumbling with the waistband. It settled comfortably on his hips. When he looked in the full-length mirror, his breath caught. It wasn't a dramatic transformation. He was still just him, in his plain t-shirt and bare feet. But the skirt changed the entire line of his body. Where his jeans had created a stark, straight line, the gentle flare of the fabric created a curve, a softness. It was, as Maya had said, an illusion, but it felt more real than anything he'd ever worn. He walked back into the living room, his movements tentative. He remembered their lessons, keeping his steps smaller, letting his hips sway just enough to make the fabric move. Maya's eyes lit up, not with surprise, but with a deep, affirming warmth. "See," she whispered, "the drape, it gives you a silhouette." Silhouette, that was the word. He wasn't a boy in a skirt. He was a shape, a form in motion. He twirled slowly, a shy smile touching his lips as the heavy fabric swirled around his legs. The sensation was wonderful, a gentle caress of cloth that felt both freeing and grounding. For the first time, he wasn't just wearing an item of clothing hidden in a drawer. He was seeing the beginning of a person, sketched out in charcoal gray fabric, waiting to be filled in with color. He looked at Maya, his heart full, and saw not just a teacher, but a co-creator, the architect of a dream he was finally learning to build. The dress lay across their bed like a silent promise. It was a simple A-line, the color of a deep teal sea, the fabric soft and forgiving. Beside it, on a styrofoam head, rested the wig they had chosen together, a cascade of warm chestnut brown with subtle waves that fell just past the shoulders. To Alan, the whole scene felt like a stage set just before the curtain rises, breathtaking and terrifying in its potential. Every lesson, every stumble, every small victory over the past few weeks had led to this. His hands were cold, a stark contrast to the warm, excited flesh he could feel on his neck. A frantic hummingbird beat against his ribs. This was it, the full assembly. Ready? Maya's voice was a soft anchor in the swirling sea of his anxiety. She stood by her vanity, which was now covered in a dizzying array of brushes, palettes, and tubes. It looked like an artist's station, and in a way it was. Alan simply nodded, unable to trust his voice. He sat in the chair she'd positioned for him, deliberately facing away from the large bedroom mirror. They had agreed on that. No peeking. The reveal had to be all at once. He closed his eyes as she began, feeling the familiar, gentle touch of her hands on his face. First came the cool, soothing swipe of primer. Then the delicate, rhythmic dabbing of a makeup sponge applying foundation. With each layer, he felt less like Alan and more like a canvas. The sensation was strangely calming, a surrender. Maya worked with a focused, quiet intensity, her breath a soft whisper near his ear. She was transforming him, not with grand, dramatic strokes, but with 1,000 tiny, deliberate acts of care. "This will even everything out," she murmured, her brush dusting a soft powder over his skin. "It just creates a smooth base for everything else." He felt the light scratch of an eyebrow pencil, the soft sweep of a brush applying a warm, neutral shadow to his lids. He fought the instinct to flinch as the eyeliner pencil traced a delicate line, her hand steady and sure against his cheek. It was an act of profound trust. He was letting her reshape the face he'd seen every day for 26 years. A part of him, the old, scared part, whispered that this was a foolish game, a ridiculous masquerade. But a newer, more fragile voice, the one that sounded like Allie, urged him to be still, to believe in Maya's hands. The final touch was the mascara, a soft, deliberate wiggle of the wand against his lashes. "Okay," Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Keep your eyes closed for a second." He heard her lift the wig from its stand. He felt the light mesh cap settle over his own short hair, then the gentle weight of the chestnut waves falling around his face and onto his shoulders. It felt right. The weight of it, light as it was, felt significant, like a coronation. Maya's fingers combed through the synthetic strands, tucking a few behind his ear, arranging them just so. A silence settled over the room, thick with anticipation. It stretched for what felt like an eternity. "Okay," Maya finally said, her voice trembling slightly. "Allie, you can look now." He took a shaky breath, the air catching in his throat. His eyelids felt impossibly heavy. Slowly, he opened them. For a heartbeat, he didn't recognize the person staring back at him from the mirror. It wasn't Alan. The face was softer, the jawline less pronounced, the eyes wider and deeper, framed by long lashes and the gentle arc of the brown hair. The lips, tinted with a natural rose shade, looked fuller. It was a stranger. And yet, the stranger's eyes held a familiarity so profound it stole his breath. They were his eyes, but they were seeing for the first time. All the awkwardness, all the self-doubt, all the years of feeling like an ill-fitting suit, it all dissolved in the face of this person. She wasn't a caricature. She wasn't a man in a dress. She was her. A sob caught in his throat, tight and sharp. His brain struggled to connect the person in the reflection with the body he inhabited, but his heart had no such trouble. It recognized her instantly. This was the person he had been searching for his entire life, the one he only met in fleeting dreams. This was Allie. A single tear escaped and traced a clean path through the makeup on his cheek. He lifted a trembling hand. his own but not his own, and gently touched his cheek, his fingers meeting the soft, powdered skin of the woman in the mirror. She did the same. It was real. He felt Maya's presence before he saw her. Her reflection appeared in the mirror behind Allie's, her face filled with a tenderness so deep it was almost painful to witness. She didn't speak. She just watched him, watched Allie, see herself for the first time. Slowly, she rested her hands on Allie's shoulders, her touch grounding, her warmth seeping through the teal fabric of the dress he hadn't even realized he was wearing. Her eyes met Allie's in the reflection. "There you are," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I've been waiting to meet you." And in the mirror, two women looked back, their journey just beginning. The lingering reflection in the hall mirror was a ghost Allie couldn't stop herself from glancing at. The woman looking back was a fragile, beautiful composite of Maya's artistry and her own deepest yearning. The soft auburn wig framed a face she was just beginning to recognize, with eyes that looked wider, softer. The navy blue A-line skirt and simple cream-colored cardigan felt less like a costume now, and more like a second skin, albeit one she hadn't quite figured out how to inhabit. She sat on the edge of the sofa, her posture a conscious, calculated effort. Spine straight, knees together, ankles crossed. It was the way Maya had shown her, a pose meant to convey grace. But inside, she felt like a coiled spring, a collection of angles and anxieties held together by sheer force of will. Every movement felt rehearsed, every breath a performance. The profound, heart-stopping moment of recognition in the mirror had faded, replaced by the familiar static of self-doubt. She was a marionette, and she could feel every single string. Maya, curled in the armchair with a book, looked up. Her gaze was soft, perceptive. She saw not just the carefully constructed image of Allie, but the tension humming just beneath the surface. She set her book aside and watched for a long moment. "You're thinking again," Maya said, her voice gentle. Allie's shoulders tightened. "I'm trying to remember everything, how to sit, where to put my hands." "I know," Maya smiled. "But Allie isn't a list of rules, remember? She's a feeling." She stood up and walked over to their small Bluetooth speaker on the bookshelf. With a few taps of her phone, a soft, ambient melody filled the room, a gentle beat pulsing like a slow heartbeat. Maya extended a hand. "May I have this dance?" Panic flared in Allie's chest. "Dance? Maya, I can barely walk without looking like a newborn deer. I can't dance." The thought of adding complex movement to the precarious balance she was maintaining felt impossible. She pictured her long limbs flailing, the carefully crafted grace shattering into clumsy masculine angles. "Perfect," Maya said, her hand still outstretched. "I'm not asking you to dance. I'm asking you to move with me." Hesitantly, Allie placed her hand in Maya's. Her fingers were cold. Maya's were warm, her grip firm and reassuring. She pulled Allie to her feet in the center of their living room rug. The space between the sofa and the coffee table became their dance floor. "Okay," Maya said, placing Allie's other hand on her shoulder and resting her own on Allie's waist. "Rule number 1. There are no rules. Don't think about your feet. Don't think about your arms. Just listen to the music." She began to sway, a simple side-to-side motion, leading Allie with a gentle pressure at her waist. Allie's movements were stiff, robotic. She was trying to mirror Maya, her mind racing. Is this right? Are my hips supposed to move? What do I do with my head? Her body felt like a foreign object, unwieldy and disobedient. "Close your eyes," Maya murmured, her voice close to Allie's ear. Allie obeyed, plunging into a darkness that was somehow less frightening than her own reflection. Without the visual feedback loop of her own awkwardness, the world narrowed to sensation. The soft knit of the cardigan against her skin, the subtle weight of the wig on her head, the solid presence of Maya in front of her. "Now just feel it," Maya whispered. "Feel my hand on your back. Feel the beat. Let your body follow." Allie took a shaky breath and tried to let go. She focused on the rhythm, the soft thrumming that seemed to vibrate up from the floorboards. She felt Maya shift her weight, and instead of thinking about it, she let her own body respond, a subtle sway that was less a conscious decision and more an instinct. Slowly, the rigidity began to melt. Her shoulders, which had been up by her ears, dropped. Her hips, once locked in place, began to move with a gentle rhythm. The teacher-student dynamic faded with the light outside their window, replaced by something else. They weren't practicing. They were communicating in a language without words. Maya would lead with a gentle turn, and Allie would follow, the skirt flaring around her legs in a whisper of fabric. A small, genuine smile touched Allie's lips. She felt the flow of it, the simple joy of being in motion, untethered from the constant internal critique. The dance was simple, just a slow, shuffling sway in the middle of their living room, but it felt like flight. She wasn't Alan trying to move like a woman. She was Allie, dancing with the woman she loved. When the song faded into silence, they stood still for a moment, wrapped in the quiet intimacy of the room. Allie opened her eyes, finding Maya's face just inches from her own, her expression full of a warmth that made Allie's heart ache with gratitude. "See?" Maya said softly. "You've got it." Allie shook her head, a breathy laugh escaping her. "I wasn't thinking," she said, the words full of wonder. "For a minute, I was just moving." She leaned forward and rested her forehead against Maya's shoulder, a gesture of pure trust and surrender. "See?" Maya said softly. "You've got it." Allie shook her head, a breathy laugh escaping her. "I wasn't thinking," she said, the words full of wonder. "For a minute, I was just moving." She leaned forward and rested her forehead against Maya's shoulder, a gesture of pure trust and surrender. The ghost in the mirror didn't matter anymore. In this small, safe space, held in Maya's arms, she wasn't a performance. She was real.
Don't stop now. See what happens next. Subscribe for more every week. Hit the bell and stay part of the story.